Alright people, JC here. So let's start coding our game. As you can see here, I have everything set up with this move clip called deck. These cards are simple buttons with the 4 states defined. The over state has a highlight, and the down state is scaled down. Very simple, okay? If I output this to the browser, you see we can easily get this nice rollover effect. Okay, so I'm going back to my project here, and I'm going to click on this frame to start add our code. Okay, first thing here is to create a variable to reference to this main deck object. In Animate CC, to reference objects in stage, we can write export root dot, but in this case I'm going to use this because I'm already on the main timeline, so I can use this dot deck. The other variable is a reference to the number of cards we have inside of this object. To do this, we only need to access the deck object. It has a children property that is an array, and we can get the total of objects same length. The reason I am putting this code on the second frame is because if it was on the first frame, I'm going to show you very quickly. If I try to console log max index variable, you'll see something very interesting. You see, it's saying that I don't have children, which is a lie because I do have. If I undo what I just did, put this back on the second frame, I'm going to already create a start function because I always like to start my projects like this. In this case, I'm going to reference to the main timeline using export root, so you won't be going back and forth. I'm going to again log that max index variable, and now as you can see, I have the correct number of children. Okay. So now we have to get the faces. We have to set the face for the cards. To do this, we have to first create an array of faces. In my case, I will only use numbers, but you can use drawings, animations, whatever you want to. Okay. For this, I'm going to create a var called faces that is an array. I can initialize like this or not, because what I'm going to do now is to set this to a function that will generate a random array for me. And this function I'm going to call get random array, and the only parameter it needs is the total number of elements we want. We have already assigned this using the max index variable. Okay, so down here I'm going to create this function called get random array. Inside this function we need a new array, a local variable, to temporarily save what we need to do. I'm going to create a for loop, initialize with 0. This I variable is going to be smaller than the index. I'm sorry, I need to define a parameter here. So in fact, this will go equal to max e++. So for every value of I, I'm going to assign a number that will represent the face of the card. So if I just put I, I'm going to console log this so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, sorry about that. That's something I need to do here first. I need to return a value. Okay, so everything is correct. Okay, if I go to the console, you see I have all the face in order from 0 to 23, but that's not what we want, because if you've already played the memory game once in your lifetime, you remember that we need pairs of numbers. To do this, I'm going to use a rounding trick where I get the math.floor function. You know, the math.floor function is a function to round down numbers to the nearest integers. So if I have, I don't know, 1.7, it will be 1. If I have 2.5, it will be 2. Differently from the round that can round down and up, the floor function will always round down. Okay. For this, I'm going to multiply by 0.5. What's the reason? Okay, when I is 0, if I multiply the 0 by 0.5 and round down, I will get 0. If I is 1 and I multiply this by 0.5, it will be 0.5. Round down will still be 0. If the I value is 2 and I multiply this by a half, by 0.5, it will be 1. Round down, still 1. And if I, sorry, this should be I, not 1. Okay. And if I is 3, if I multiply this by 0.5, it will be 1.5. Round down, it will be 1. So you get the idea. We have pair of values, and that's exactly what we need. Continue here. We have now the pairs of values. If you want to see again, I can log this again so you can better understand what's going on. See here, but the numbers will always follow this order, and we also don't need this. We need to randomize this array. For this, I'm going to use a very common function that you can find easily online, that gets a function as a parameter. This function takes two numbers, two values, and these values, they are compared. So if one is smaller than the other, or bigger or equal, this function will put the array based on these comparisons. Okay. There's no need for me to go into further details of this. All you need to do is that it works. So if I output my game again, okay, the return statement, I have two return statements. This can be Okay, so to log this, I can go here outside and write faces. Let's see if it works now. Okay, now I think it's working. See, I get my array randomized.